Hello and welcome to the Roundtable. We are going to delve into this week's key global issues with experts. Today we have Dr. Hwangtaehee, a professor of political science and international studies at Yonsei University. Thanks for coming to the program.
Thank you for having me.
We are also joined by Dr. Kim Hana, a professor at Graduate School of International Studies of Sewang University. Welcome.
Thanks for having me again.
On November 28th, the host city of the World Expo 2030 will be elected. The vote is just 2 weeks away. Busan in South Korea is in the running to host the event, and both the public and civilian sectors of Korea have gone all out to help the city of Busan to win its bid. In support for Busan's bid, Korean government officials and business people have traveled 16.4 million kilometers, which is equivalent to circling around the globe 409 times. They have visited 25 countries and met 2,308 people. First game, the race is still in the running.
Yes, it is. So the Bureau International d'Exposition, or BIE for short, is headquartered in Paris. And Korean companies right now are advertising and campaigning there very rigorously. In particular, there were 2,030 buses advertising Busan running around the city right now. And they'll continue to run around the city until November 28th, until Election Day.
Professor Hwang, it has been reported that the Korean government, Yoon government, has been in full support for Busan to win its bid.
Right, so ministers and vice ministers of foreign affairs and trade affairs have visited numerous countries in the world to get some support for the Expo bid. Even President Yoon visited Paris in June and at the United Nations conference in September to deliver a speech. And President Yoon is going to visit Paris again in November 23rd and 24th to make a final pitch.
Korean people are in one mind and pray that the campaign will become a success and Busan will be selected to host the World Expo 2030. Professor Kim, if Korea wins the bid, Korea will host the World Expo for the first time. But what about the two previous times that Korea actually hosted the expos? One in Daejeon and the other one in Yeosu.
Right, so it's quite different. So as you mentioned, Korea hosted expos twice, once in 1993 and once in 2012. But the World Expo that Busan is bidding to host is quite different because it's a registered expo. So the 1993 expo in Daejeon and the 2012 expo in Yeosu were recognized exhibitions, whereas the 2030 World Expo is a registered exhibition. And a registered exhibition takes place once every 5 years. And it's one of 3 major global events, with the others being the World Cup and the Olympics. So as you mentioned, if Busan wins the bid, it'll be the first time Korea hosts a registered exhibition.
Expo.
Yes.
I didn't know that. Professor Hwang, people are talking about the expected economic benefits if Busan is going to host the expos.
So 2 previous expos held in Daejeon and Yeosu boosted a national image of South Korea and also created enormous economic effects. So for instance, the DaejeonExpo generated production effects worth some $2.3 billion US. And for YeosuExpo, it was more than $7.6 billion. Also, DaejeonExpo created 212,000 jobs, and YeosuExpo created 89,000 jobs. So if Busan hosts Expo in 2030, I think more than 50 million people will visit Busan from almost 200 countries, which will create production effects worth nearly $32.8 billion. So we expect that BusanExpo will create 500,000 jobs. So on top of this, we expect a number of intangible and tangible effects. For example, promotional benefits of South Korea and Busan.
I see. The World Expo is considered to be one of 3 largest international events, along with the World Cup and the Olympic Games. Shanghai hosted the World Expo in 2010, and it created the economic effects of over $83.8 billion and the city consolidates its status as a leading hub of global finance. Italy's Milan hosted the World Expo in 2015, and it created economic effects of some $48 billion and 240,000 jobs. Milan is now Italy's largest tourist destination, surpassing Rome. Oh, cute bird has just appeared in the studio. Professor Kim, do you have any idea what it is?
Yeah, so it's the BusanExpo mascot. Its name is bugi, which stands for Busan galmaegi, or seagulls of Busan, and it symbolizes Busan as a port city, and it's a very loved character.
Do you remember Kumdori, the official mascot of the DaejeonExpo? It was quite popular 30 years ago. Now it's bugi's turn to shine. By the way, Busan is not the only one that's bidding to host the World Expo 2030. Busan of Korea, Riyadh of Saudi Arabia, and Rome of Italy are vying to win the bid. The media reports that Riyadh is emerging as the strongest competitor for Busan right now. Professor Kim, what is the strength of the Riyadh as a strong competitor in this bid?
So based on its big oil money, Saudi Arabia is promising to provide enormous infrastructure and also hold an eco-friendly expo, while also promising the values of inclusivity, equality, and sustainability.
I see. It sounds like the Saudi Arabia is really tough to be beaten in this competition.
It may be a little difficult, yes.
But Professor Hwang, I think Busan also have its own strategic edges to win the bid.
Right, so Saudi Arabia is making a push with its oil money, but at the same time, I think Busan is doing a great job. So by putting forward the theme of transforming our world, navigating toward a better future, Busan is stressing the values of sustainable environment, technology for humankind, and inclusiveness, and also support for developing countries. So Busan is fourth largest city in Asia and ninth on a global scale. Also, Busan had many experiences of having these international events and international conferences. And I think most importantly, people in Busan are behind this event. So they are voluntarily supporting to win this bid.
At this moment, heated campaigns are underway in Paris to appeal to BIE member states. With the election just 2 weeks away, Professor Kim, is there anything that the bidding strategy of the Busan be more focused on?
So the government has already spent a lot of money and resources promoting Busan both at home and abroad. But now I think Busan needs to focus on winning the support of specific BIE member countries. As Professor Hwang mentioned, Busan is a major port city, it's a major tourist city, it's a future industry city. It also hosts the Busan International Film Festival. So if Busan can continue to show that it's a strong candidate, then that would be something to focus on for the next 2 weeks.
Next 2 weeks.
Right.
Professor Hwang, 2 weeks remain. What should be the focus of Busan?
So I think Busan should emphasize its strength as a candidate city. So sustainability, innovation spirit, and cultural attractions.
Okay.
So I think Busan should focus on meeting people and state representatives, maybe hosting some seminars and webinars and so on, maybe working with private sectors as well.
I see. Okay, we are sincerely hoping that Busan's efforts will bear fruit and the city will get elected to host the World Expo 2030.
Korea is committed to providing the largest ever assistance package for more than 110 member states that are participating. Also, the BusanExpo will be a platform of ideas for future generations. We must pass on a clean and safe earth and a sustainable peace and prosperity to future generations. We need to build a world full of bigger dreams and visions. through the BusanExpo, the young generations of the world will learn how to work together as a community. And the 2030 BusanExpo will be remembered as one shifting our priority from competition to solidarity. Busan is ready. We are united. Let's transform our world and navigate toward a better future. See you in Busan in 2030. Thank you.
Next, let's take a look at a selection of photos highlighting last week's key events. We had a quick summary of what happened last week. Professor Hwang, what was the most attention grabber for you?
So for me, it was the picture of Shinsegae department store's digital facade. So I think it's a Christmas time.
That digital facade has been one of the most favored tourist sites for the foreign tourists to the city of Seoul. For me, it was the King's speech, first time delivered by King Charles III for the opening of the parliament. What about you, Professor Kim?
So for me, Secretary Blinken's visit was what was most interesting because it's closely related to Korea's national security.
Secretary Blinken's visit to South Korea during the Yoon Sung-yeol government is his first time.
Right.
And Antony Blinken must be one of the busiest people in the world, traveling around many places this time. But there must be a good reason for his visit to South Korea, right? So what is the significant implications of his visit to Seoul this time?
Right, so as you mentioned, Secretary Blinken is very busy. But his visit signals that the ROK-US alliance is not only very strong right now, but it's also growing stronger, and that the two countries will work together, not just in terms of military security, but economic security as well. And the two countries can cooperate in other fields, such as AI, space, quantum technology, and even culture and people-to-people exchanges. But most importantly, I think Secretary Blinken's visit signals that despite what's going on in the Middle East, issues in the Korean Peninsula will not be overshadowed.
I see. Professor Hwang, it has been expected that Secretary Tony Blinken's meeting with his counterpart in the South Korean government, Secretary ParkJin of Foreign Affairs, must be a response to the ongoing security cooperation between Russia and North Korea, including the weapon trade between the two countries. What must have been the content of their meeting?
I think they shared information regarding what's going on between Russia and North Korea, especially the speed or the quantity of arms deals that these two countries are having. I think one way to respond to this crisis is that they probably talked about China, which is not that enthusiastic about this arms deal. Also, many European countries are concerned about these arms deals because eventually North Korea is supporting Russia in this Ukrainian war. So I think they probably talked about how to gain international cooperation and consensus from these countries.
How about you, Professor Kim?
I completely agree with Professor Hwang. So during these bilateral talks between Secretary Blinken and Foreign Minister ParkJin, we can imagine that the main point of discussion was how to stop Russia from transferring sensitive military technology to North Korea. So one response to this may be how, maybe related to sanctions imposed by like-minded countries such as Japan and European countries. And as Professor Hwang mentioned, trying to find ways to encourage China to play a more critical role in curbing the cooperation between Russia and North Korea because it's not in China's national interest either.
I see. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un is believed to be supplying conventional weapons to Russia, Iran, Hezbollah, and Hamas. Professor Hwang, there has been rumor that there has been a number of transfers of at least 3 types of ballistic missiles between Russia and North Korea. If this rumor is true, then it poses a new and grave threat to the security of South Korea, right?
Right. So I think it's indeed a threat to South Korea because North Korea is expected to get the support from Russia in return for providing those ammunitions. For example, submarine technologies or satellite technologies, they are all related to nuclear weapons operations. If that is the case, then it's going to be a grave threat to the security of South Korea.
Secretary Blinken visited Korea ahead of next week's APEC summit in San Francisco, where the leaders of the United States and China are set to meet on Wednesday on the sidelines of the APEC gathering. Regarding U.S.-China relations, what did Secretary Blinken and Foreign Minister ParkJin discuss? Professor Kim?
Right, so as you mentioned, we can imagine that Secretary Blinken and Foreign Minister ParkJin discussed the main agenda of the APEC summit. And even though they're meeting on the sidelines, the meeting between President Joe Biden and President Xi Jinping was probably their main point of discussion. Also, I imagine that Secretary Blinken may have briefed Foreign Minister ParkJin on Wang Yi's visit to the U.S., which happened very recently, especially since Secretary Blinken met with Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi. And so we can imagine that that was also part of the discussions as well.
Following Tony Blinken, U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin visited Korea this week. Professor Hwang, I think the main agenda to be discussed between both sides will be how to strengthen extended deterrence for South Korea against Russia, China, and North Korea.
Right. So I think most importantly, they shared information regarding North Korea's military provocations and so on. But I would like to emphasize that the ROK and U.S. alliance has been strengthened significantly this year, maybe as a result of April's Washington Declaration and ensuring the creation of nuclear consultation group. So I think it's going very successfully. Also, this extended deterrence has been upgraded one more time as a result of this summit, trilateral summit by Japan, South Korea, and the United States.
At Camp David.
Right, at Camp David. So I think at this point, we should strengthen this nuclear extended deterrence with the United States. I think that's most important. So I think it depends on what North Korea will get from Russia as a result of this arms deal. But probably South Korea and the United States should commit to this current system of nuclear extended deterrence, and using the this nuclear consultation group and ensuring showing of strategic assets, thereby sending a clear message to Kim Jong-un that these two countries will not stay quiet if North Korea provokes.
And it is a very interesting time that North Korea announced that it's going to launch the military satellite for the 3rd time, but the plan has been delayed from a month of October.
Right. So we expect that North Korea will get some technological support from Russia regarding this satellite technologies, and that will be the important stage for North Korea's nuclear developments. So now nuclear developments-wise, North Korea has nuclear warhead and nuclear carriers, and also satellite technology that can pinpoint the point of attack. So I think that will be the real sort of a danger for our security of South Korea.
The situation is quite concerning. Professor Kim, same question. The security consultative meeting between Secretary Austin and the newly appointed Ministry of National Defense, Shin Won-shi, will be the first time between them.
Right. So as Professor Hwang mentioned, denuclearization of North Korea is of utmost priority to Korea and the US as well. So we can imagine that the two will continue to work closely together. And as I mentioned previously, also possibly try to get China on the table. But there's also another actor. There's also Japan. Right? So as Professor Hwang mentioned, the Camp David Summit does show that the three countries are going to be working together in terms of security cooperation. And there was also the trilateral ministerial meeting that happened this past Sunday between the three countries, where they talked about ways to focus on North Korean denuclearization. And they also discussed data sharing mechanisms in terms of watching North Korean missiles. So we can imagine that these are all new ways, but also more advanced ways to strengthen extended deterrence.
In the trilateral summit and the trilateral security cooperation context.
Right.
The world is closely watching the upcoming summit meeting between US President Joe Biden and Chinese President Xi Jinping. Next week, we'll have in-depth discussion on the summit and its impacts on the global politics and economy. Let's talk about it in advance. Professor Hwang, what can we expect from the expected summit meeting between Biden and Xi?
So President Biden and Xi Jinping probably will talk about how to ease the tensions in many areas, and especially great power competition-wise. They will talk about hopefully some cooperative measures, maybe other wars too.
If so, then would it be a very positive development for South Korea? Because there has been concern that South Korea being sandwiched, especially for its automobile and semiconductor trade between China and the United States.
Right, so both in economic and security-wise, I think having tensions between China and the United States will not be very good for South Korea. Also, North Korea will have some room for more provocations, which will create more issues. So I think this summit in APEC between the two powers will be quite important.
I see. Professor Kim, same question. What do you see coming from this Biden-Xi summit meeting in San Francisco?
I want to be a bit hopeful about the meeting, especially since a lot of American politicians have visited China recently, and Foreign Minister Wang Yi has also visited the US. And so it shows that the two countries are, in the very least, trying to work together in terms of international issues. So we can imagine that North Korea, Russia, cooperation will be a main point of discussion, but they may also discuss the escalating issue in the Middle East. And so we can hope that the two countries will cooperate related to these issues.
It gives our viewers one more reason to watch the next episode of this program, the Roundtable.
Right.
Professors, thanks for coming to the studio and sharing your insight and analysis with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This ends this week's episode of the Roundtable. We hope you have a nice week until we meet again. Thanks for watching and goodbye.